Level up your LA Kings experience with Vivid Seats Elite Seats. All the on-ice Kings action with even more exclusive access and rewards. Enjoy great seats to the game in Section 103 along with Yamava Club access and parking included with your purchase. Plus, get a free Team LA Kings shop item at the game. Score your Vivid Seats Elite Seats tickets today and earn perks on each purchase from the only leading ticket company with a rewards program. Experience it live with Vivid Seats, the official partner of the LA Kings. Do you know the LA Kings have their own culinary partner? It's Superfood, celebrating 10 years and over 1 million meals served. Since 2020, the Kings have trusted Superfood to fuel their players. Now through Simply Lunch, you can bring that same performance-driven food to your office. Because when people eat better, they work better. Visit mysuperfood.com. That's mysuperfd.com. Or call 213-973-6145. Qualified companies can enjoy a free lunch for up to 10 managers.
Top of the left circle. Back in front, LaFerriere toward the middle. Kempe scores! Adrian Kempe found the puck at the inside of the near circle and swings it in past Binnington.
You're listening to All the Kings Men, the official podcast of the LA Kings.
Nice feed, finds the backhand of Edmondson, steps to the blue line, shoots, blocked in front, they score! Kempe, loose puck between the dots, he roofs it past Soros. Kings get one back.
Now, here's your host, Jesse Cohen.
All right, it is Monday morning. That means it's time to crown a King of the Week. Here joining me to help out, Andrew Knoll. How are you doing today, Andrew?
Doing great.
So we are covering the last 3 games in the LA Kings schedule because the week starts on Monday and there was no game this Monday. So we're covering the win over St. Louis, the shootout loss to the Predators, and the overtime win against the Maple Leafs. And I should point out that the win against the Blues is in overtime as well. So even though all 3 games go to overtime to help the Kings capture the record for most overtime games in a season, they still wind up with 5 out of a possible 6 points, which, given their attempt to qualify for a playoff spot, has to be considered a positive. So you know the drill. The listeners know the drill. Andrew, who do you got for our runner-up this week?
We're doing runner-up or honorable mention?
Honorable mention.
We're going on.
You're right. Honorable mention.
I usually go off the board, but this week I'm going to pick all players.
Okay. Thank you.
So, and it's pretty much, you'll see the theme. Honorable mention, I'll go Artemi Panarin. Okay. I had considered elevating him a little higher. He is the kind of the source of sentience out there. He and Brant Clark. I mean, you can see that he is trying to will things to happen between his shot, the intentionality of his passing and his movement. He has that thing where he can just kind of vanish in plain sight and then reappear in a critical area. Tremendous hockey sense. And I mean, to be honest, they would be dead in the water without him. So, trade's paid off and he looks good, and he's my honorable mention this week.
Fair enough. That makes this the 6th week in a row since acquiring him, or 7th. No, 6th week in a row. Yeah, 6th week in a row that he's been playing games, that he has gotten at least 1 point for King of the Week. I mean, yeah, he's obviously been incredible. I was torn on honorable mention because I wanted to go with Trevor Moore or Quentin Byfield.
Right.
Because both of them had game-winning goals in overtime. But I couldn't choose between either one of them, so I went with Anton Forsberg, excuse me.
Yeah.
Because Anton Forsberg, I think, really played his heart out against St. Louis. He held them to 1 goal. And I don't think it was his fault that game went to overtime, and he helped them win it in overtime and got 2 points in a week where his counterpart struggled. So my honorable mention this week is Anton Forsberg.
Yeah, and let's face it, he should be the preferred starter the rest of the way. He's clearly playing the better game of the 2 goalies right now, which is what counts.
Yeah, I mean, I said months ago, I don't remember how long ago, but I said if this were a market with a more aggressive hockey media presence, the conversation of goaltender controversy would have been much louder. If there were like drive time radio that everybody listened to, if there was nightly news reports on hockey on the news, in this market were invested in, and by people I mean the legacy media, it would be a much louder conversation. It's not, and over the last 3 days, I think DJ Smith has been asked rather pointedly about the goaltending situation, and he has repeatedly said that Darcy Kemper is quote unquote their guy, and it's his net. And after the last 2 games, I couldn't help but think about the line in Miracle where Kurt Russell says to the young man playing Jim Craig, "It's everybody's net right now," or something like that. Anyway, Anton Forsberg. I keep wanting to call him Peter Forsberg, but that's not his name. Anton Forsberg is my honorable mention.
He wishes that were his name, but
yeah, I'm sure
he's done pretty well for himself just the same.
Yeah, your runner-up then, Andrew.
Runner-up, I'm going to go with Juice.
Okay.
By any statistical analysis, he would be the winner this week. He's been rejuvenated by Panarin too. I think his game was in something of a rut before the arrival of the bread man. And now, it is Passover, but their games have leavened one another. So, wow. I think, that one made my stomach hurt a little. Anyway, no, I definitely Juice. I mean, he scored big goals. He was their leading scorer. I think he was over 2 points a game this week, right? So,
he had 7. Yeah, so yes, he had 7 points. Yeah, five goals, 2 assists in 3 games, and a +2.
Yeah, kind of a no-brainer, I think, to at least have him on the list. And the edge too in his game is starting to come back a little bit, which they desperately need right now. So between the top line coalescing and now the second line too, you mentioned Moore and Byfield, Laugh with a big goal yesterday. He's fit in nicely there. They have an actual top 6. They're not getting much from the back end or the bottom 6, but at this point in this race that nobody seems to want to win now, the division is tightening up in a crazy way too, with Anaheim's free fall and, Vegas and Edmonton putting together a little surge here. Everything is just getting so compact. So you can't nitpick it too much.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm a little surprised. Yeah, I'm very curious now to see who you're going with for King of the Week, because my runner-up was your honorable mention, Artemi Panarin.
Yeah.
And, it's funny. Panarin, he's one of those guys where, I see a lot of comparisons to Kevin Fiala because, of the turnovers and the, we've even heard DJ Smith say, Panarin plays a certain way and you have to allow him to do that. The difference I would say between Panarin and Fiala is that Panarin generates points at a much higher rate. And I don't say that as any disrespect to Fiala. It's just that Panarin is over a point per game since being acquired. And when he's out there, he does make things happen. This particular week, he had 5 points, if I'm not mistaken, 1 goal, 4 assists, 5 points, +2 in 21 minutes, 24 seconds of ice time over those 3 games, shooting percent of 14.3%, 1.67 points per game. And, whether it's the goal he scored where Brandt Clark sort of deflected it in off the inside of his stick blade, or, passes he makes to set other players up, he is always, to your point, always in the right area, always sort of pops up in the right area. There was that goal a few weeks ago against the Islanders where he was just, alone in front of Sorokin, I think it was, and Kopitar found him. But, why was he there? He just knows where to go, knows where to be. And to your point, he seems to be making a lot of these points happen. And I don't know. I still think he's the best winger the Kings have had in decades.
Yeah, I mean, him or Gaborik, and Gaborik was there for a short time.
Yeah,
different type of, but comparing him with Fiala, I think there's some similarities there, but the difference I see between Panarin and Fiala is Panarin has less speed but more intentionality. He's got that thing fair. Like Kucherov and a lot of the elite Russian players over time have had, where he sees several steps ahead. He has that concept of passing the puck into the net, that if you make the right passes at the right time and the right movements, the shot is almost irrelevant. You'll be able to tuck it in. And we've seen that on several of finishes, like you mentioned with Clark Kempe the other day, the puck that went in off his skate, different things like that. yeah, he's just, he sees and thinks the game at another level. Kev is more athletic. He can make more plays with his feet, and he's also a very good passer, and he delivers a lot of lateral passes. But a lot of times he's doing things and other guys are not able to react at the same speed or see what's going on, whereas Panarin kind of slows things down, and he'll even use his line mates as props sometimes. Like, okay, you just stand there, and I'm going to make this happen. So, just really otherworldly hockey sense, and that's been a blessing for the Kings down the stretch here.
I think he makes other players, like he's made Brant Clark, I think, even better, and that's impressive. All right, then let's find out who your King of the Week is.
So this is the last time I'll be able to pick him, more than likely. So I'm going with Kopitar. Had an okay week, just a couple points in the 3 games. Obviously, he had the turnover yesterday that led to a goal and so forth. But this is not about his week as much as it is about the past 2 decades. I thought what John Tavares said about the game was, very genuine and sincere, talking about Kopitar as a gentleman and somebody who's really carried himself in an exemplary way, in addition to being the franchise's all-time leading scorer, a 2-time champion, a 2-time Selke winner. You look at his career, and there's not a lot more complete players out there over the course of NHL history, let alone his generation. So throughout the year, I've talked to different guys like Jonathan Toews and Sidney Crosby. They've all been extremely reverent, and Toews thought that competing against Kopitar and having the rivalry with the Kings was something that enriched his career. Crosby talked about how if you're even with Kopitar, you've lost the battle because he always finds a way to get position. From the most technical to the broadest stuff, you could really sense the deep appreciation that they had for him as a competitor and for him as an individual. So, if Sid and Taser and Evgeny Malkin and Alexander Barkov and all these guys are saying it, who am I to disagree? I'm definitely going to have him as my King of the Week. And what's, like I said, probably the last opportunity to pick him.
Yeah, it's, I don't know if they'll make the playoffs or not. Obviously, there's 6 games left and it's still not decided. But it would be a tremendous shame if his season ended in the regular season with 3 road games, Seattle, Vancouver, and Calgary. I don't know if that's a compelling enough reason for people to want a playoff berth over some of the draft capital that could be earned, but just ignoring that, he's had a tremendous career, and you're right. Unfortunately, Andrew, he was the King of the Week last week. Or no, not last week, 3 weeks ago, whatever it was when he broke the record.
Right.
This week, the correct answer is Adrian Kempe, and I already identified him. And as I said, what did I say? 7 points, I think, in 3 games, 5 goals, 2 assists, 7 points plus 2. And while he didn't have game-winning goals in those games, he scored the first goal of the game against the Blues from Laferriere and Panarin on the power play. And then in that, do we want to call it a tremendous comeback against the Nashville Predators? He scored the first 2 goals in that comeback to sort of spur it on, I suppose. And then the comeback against Toronto was not as impressive, but he scored the second goal to tie it up, to make it 2-2, and then scored again in the third period to start that 3-goal third period. So, I mean, he has obviously played a role. And was it Todd McClellan that first identified it as Adrian Kempe plays better when the other team looks like they're mad at him? I think that was Todd McClellan who introduced that concept. And Adrian Kempe is starting to look like playoff Adrian Kempe, which makes sense because these are playoff games. They shouldn't be, but they are. And so congratulations, Adrian Kempe, this week's King of the Week. Now, Andrew, when it comes to them making the playoffs, I'm not going to focus on the 31 games that have gone into overtime to this point. I'm not going to focus on the record-breaking number of overtime losses. I am simply going to point out that they haven't won back-to-back games since January.
Yeah.
And if they're going to make the playoffs, they're going to have to do it. Like whether they win Monday night or they win 2 or more games in a row in the remaining 5 after Monday night, if somehow they lose, like they have to win 2 in a row if they're going to make the playoffs. If they're going to keep going 1-0-1 every other game or 1-1 every other game, I don't think it's going to be enough. Scale of 1 to 10, where is your confidence level that this will happen?
That they'll make the playoffs or that they'll win back-to-back games?
Well, let's start with making the playoffs.
Maybe like a 6.
Okay.
I hadn't really thought about it until just now, but they have a puncher's chance. I mean, there's teams at the top that are falling. There's nobody that seems overly motivated. Like, there's no team that's rolling so hard and within striking distance that you're like, yeah, they're going to get it. I mean, St. Louis and Winnipeg made pretty big pushes, but they've got some scheduling issues. They haven't quite sustained it, and they were really far back to start with. You'd probably put your money on Nashville to get that last wild card spot, but now you wonder if one of these other teams might fall down. I think some people are getting paranoid about the Ducks maybe missing the playoffs. I understand that after 7 seasons,
got 5 games left.
They have to lose out. They have to lose out and have a little bit of help. Yeah. So, I mean, but we'll see. Things could open up. At this point, it's like all bets are off. They're just scraping with whatever they have. I mean, there's a lot of injuries. Other teams are underperforming or had underperformed previously. I mean, if that game last night didn't tell you that this playoff race is totally and completely random, I don't know what will. So I don't know if they have to win 2 in a row, but I think they have to win tomorrow. That's really big.
Well, that would be 2 in a row. So there you go.
Well, there you go. Yeah, I guess they did just win. It's hard to look at yesterday's game and think about one team or the other winning it. But there were so many mistakes on both sides. But So I guess in that sense, they have to win tomorrow. That's the biggest thing for me. In that case, they would have to win 2 in a row. Anything could happen. There's no rhyme or reason to the bottom of the Western Conference.
So I don't know if this is impressive or terrifying, but the Sharks went on a 4 or 5 game losing streak. The Predators went on a 4 or 5 game losing streak. The Ducks are in the midst of a 3 game losing streak. Vegas went on a losing streak. Edmonton went. Oh, is it okay? Edmonton went on a losing streak. Vegas went on a losing. Like everybody's gone on a losing streak, except the Kings. So they haven't won 2 in a row, but they also haven't strung together. Their 4-loss streak came split by the Olympic break. They lost 2 heading into the Olympics, and they lost the first 2 coming out of the Olympics, and that ultimately cost Jim Hiller his job. But outside of that, I don't think they've strung together 2 regulation losses in a row either. They just perpetually the last 3 games, they were 2-0-1, with all 3 of them going into overtime. Prior to that, the loss to the Mammoth, the win against the Canucks, shootout loss to Calgary, shootout loss to the Mammoth, loss to the Sabres, shootout loss to the Flyers, win over the Rangers, loss to New Jersey, win over the Islanders, overtime loss to Bot. Like, part of breaking that record of overtime losses and overtime games is they are not stringing together regulation losses.
Right.
Which is,
like you said, they're not stringing together regulation wins or wins either, which those other teams have done. So, it's like I said, everything is like a negating, like this, but that, but this type thing. Yeah.
And are they due then, right? Like everybody else has gone on a streak of regulation losses, but the Kings, did they get theirs out of the way early, or is it lurking in the remaining 6 games? I hope obviously it's not, but it's concerning.
Yeah, I mean, just the overall level of play and consistency is concerning. I mean, let's just put this out there that regardless of whether or not they qualify for the playoffs, this is not a playoff quality team. It hasn't been all year. When they got Panarin, theoretically, they probably put themselves on the right side of the bubble, but then they lose Kev, they lose Kuzi, and everything starts to get diluted again. So, I mean, in some ways, there's so much drama around this discussion. Will they make it or will they not make it? Should they miss and get in the lottery? But the reality is you're talking about a pick in the mid-teens versus, the high teens, most likely. I mean, so there's not that much fuss to have there. And then do they make it or they not make it? And they're kind of walking into a buzzsaw if they do make it. I mean, this team going into Denver for games 1 and 2 is not exactly must-see TV. So, I mean, I don't want to put a damper on it. We cover the team. We want people to be interested and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, it's more of a shades of gray type argument.
Well, so I'm going to correct you on 2 points there, if I may.
Certainly.
One is that if they do miss the playoffs, they're 2 points out of a top 10 finish, which means with the lottery could see them finish with the first overall pick. Now, a lot of things would have to go well, but
theoretically.
I'm just saying, it's not necessarily a lock that it's a middle teens pick or low teens pick. It could.
Well, they could move in the top 3 too. I mean, it's not just the number 1 pick, and this is a very good draft.
Yeah. So, there's that. Then the flip side of that is if they make the playoffs, if they win out, they have 6 games remaining. They can finish with a max, I think, of 93 points. If they win out and Vegas and or Anaheim and or Edmonton stumble, if they could make it into the top 3 in the Pacific, and I've said this repeatedly now for a few months, right. There's no reason that this team couldn't find itself in the Western Conference Final. And that
there isn't. What playoff team are they beating in a 7-game series? And to your other point,
Colorado.
They could avoid Colorado potentially, but it wouldn't be like a spectacular thing, I don't think, for them to play, say, Edmonton again. I hear what you're saying, but those are kind of fringe possibilities on both ends. We just talked about this team not stringing together wins or stringing together losses, and now we're talking about them potentially winning out. You look at the odds in the lottery, very unlikely that they make a big leap. So, like I said, it's, is it charcoal or carbon type discussion,
No, look, the most likely outcome is probably that they go 3-0-3 or something like that over the last 6 games, or
3-2-2, would be a Barry Kings finish. Yeah.
Yes, 2-2-2 is probably the most likely outcome. But in their defense, I suppose, their final games are, they have Nashville, which is a tough one on Monday. They've got 2 after that. They have 2 games left against Vancouver, Calgary, and Seattle, who shouldn't be very difficult. I've been terrified of that game on the 11th against the Oilers, because to me, if things broke wrong, that could have wound up being a really important game. As it is, I don't think it's mathematically possible for that game to be as important as I was scared of.
Well, at the time, you couldn't have really extrapolated or projected that. But let's not look past the Calgary game or twice against Vancouver, really, because it's tough to beat team 3-4 times in a row. But the Calgary game in particular, I think, is one that could blow up on them. I mean, Wolf has been very good against the Kings. They're a hardworking team. They're the kind of team that relishes kind of the spoiler role to be like, okay, we're out of it, but guess what? You still have to contend with us. You still have to reckon with us. We saw that last night. I mean, they put it on the Ducks.
Yeah, and I mean, listen, the Kings almost lost to Toronto, who is eliminated from a playoff spot and not terribly competitive, and they lost in shootout to Calgary the last time they played them, and they've lost to. I'm not trying to be cocky. I'm just saying mathematically, all realities are still alive. Let's just put it. Not likely, but possible, and that's why this end of the season is so interesting. Although I would prefer, after the last calendar year of my life of not knowing what the outcome was going to be and being up in the air with waiting for results, I'm done with waiting. I just want them to either go on a 3-game win streak or go on a 3-game lose streak. I don't even care. I just want it to be over. I can't handle the anticipation anymore. But and I mean, that gives rise to all these sort of sub stories, like who's going to start in net Monday night. The question has been put to DJ Smith the last 2 games in a row. Who's your starting goalie? And yet they have 3 out of the last possible 4 points. So it hasn't burned them.
It's got to be Forsberg, though. I mean, 100% has to be Forsberg.
I would think so, but who knows? I guess it's up to Mike. I was a little bit surprised, I'll say this, at the answer that DJ Smith gave after the Toronto game, when asked, he was asked before the game, and he said Darcy's our guy and the net is his. then he was asked again after that performance, and his answer was a little bit. There were more words involved in the answer than there were after the Nashville game. He said, "I have to talk to Mike Buckley. I have to talk to management." That was a new introduction into the conversation. I want to know who that means. Does that mean Ken Holland? Does that just a shorthand for the rest of the coaching staff and for the leadership group? Like, is that just mean I'll pull the room, or did he actually mean that? Like,
I don't think it means to pull the room. I mean, that would be. I mean, he's not the most precise speaker ever, but I doubt that he would conflate those two. The players and management. I mean, I think that means at least Ken Holland, maybe a larger brain trust. And yeah, I mean, that kind of raised my eyebrow a little bit too, but not really. I mean, Holland has talked about, occasionally overruling a lineup decision. Mm-hmm. Certainly we know Jim Hiller was consistently being kind of given feedback, we'll put it that way, from management. And a lot of other first-time coaches that I've covered have been in that position too, and to the point where sometimes they're outright told what to do. So, I mean, I guess if you have the illusion that the coach has total autonomy, that was something that was like, whoa, really? But I didn't really have that impression. And he also said it was in the context of the whole lineup, that there were other guys who might come out. Right.
Yes, which is another reason it sort of stuck out in my mind, because it was like, okay, is he just word salading away to protect the player, right? Because the question was really just a pointed question about one player.
You never want to badmouth your goalie until he's going to the minors or getting traded. Then maybe you can say something, but otherwise
and Smith's answer turned it into, like you said, I had forgotten about that, but you're right. He turned it into a larger conversation about the roster on the whole, and he said some players played really well and other players didn't, and made it sound like an overall team critique. So it could have been that, but I want to know. And, they have the day off today, so we won't have a chance to talk to him until after the Nashville game, at which point the answer to any questions following the Toronto game will be kind of null and void, and there'll be other things to talk about. So I guess we'll never know. And as somebody who likes to know and understand things, that drives me crazy. But such is life. It's not for me to understand, I suppose. Anyway, Andrew, thank you so much for joining me. Appreciate it as always.
Yeah, my pleasure.
And thanks for listening, Kings fans. We'll talk to you soon.